Hello, Internet, and welcome to the Rough Drafts Competes Journey of Wrestling League. I am very excited to be here today to break down 4 incredible weekly cards we have in front of us after what was an insane gold pay-per-view. Hopefully you were there on the stream on Thursday to see what each of our competitors had in store. These gold pay-per-views can have anywhere between 14 and 16 matches based on whether you were able to spend on the mega show. And we had some incredible performances. Xander and I each hit new highs in terms of hype that this game has to offer, but it was Eduardo and the Campeonato de Luchasaur that secured the victory, secured the point, and put the standings with Xander at 7, me, Chase, at 6, and Eduardo at 5. Now, normally I would have my lovely co-host Xander with me today to break down Glory of Legends and share in the awesome stories that we all have ahead of us, but unfortunately, due to some unforeseen difficulties, that's not going to happen. It's just me today, but I'm going to do my best to bring in all of the hype, all of the excitement that these matches deserve. And we start with one heck of a card from Walter's Stamford Wrestling Alliance. The narrative champion, as he calls himself, has focused a lot on what is here in front of us today. And I got to tell you, these are a couple of my favorite segments I have ever seen put together in this game. In general, I love what he's built, and I think we should just jump right on into it. Because we start with an R-end segment. Daniel Stevenson gets out to the ring, and he says, I'd say I owe everyone an apology, but the reality is I only owe these 6 people behind me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I risked your livelihoods with this bullshit between me and Ethan. I'm sorry I let Christopher Devlin get under my skin. I'm sorry you all put your own goals on hold just to prop me up. Most of all, I'm sorry I lost. I'm sorry I wasn't good enough. Rick, I'm sorry I didn't listen to your advice more. Trixie, I'm sorry I didn't put more time into helping you get better. And Brooke, I'm sorry I didn't even congratulate you on your title reign. Kyle, I wish I had been a better mentor. Jen, I'm sorry I didn't make your successes matter more. I'm sorry the Eternum is no more. And I hope all of you know I'll always be here for you, and that one day I can raise a class to the Hall of Fame careers I'm sure you will all have. And finally, I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm sorry that I failed you. I'm sorry that I didn't give you the respect and space you needed to flourish. I'm sorry, and I hope one day you will all forgive me. Just an incredible speech from Daniel Stevenson. You know, this was the stakes that Christopher Devlin put on him for that title shot. He said, look, if you're going to fight me for the championship and you fail, you don't get to be a leader of a tournament anymore. You will have failed to do your duty as a faction leader. And you can just tell from that speech, Daniel Stevenson took it very, very hard. And it seems like it resonated with everyone here, right? It's nothing but solemn looks on people's faces as they are now ex Eternum forever and always. And don't look at the score of that segment. The game, one of the things that I've complained about regularly about this game is the reputation system and how faction rep limits the maximum score possible. The important thing here you see is 100% effectiveness. The fans were as behind this segment as the game makes them capable of being behind a segment like this. And I just, for one, feel for Daniel Stevenson. I mean, if it wasn't for Ethan Wilde messing with him every step of the way, making it more and more difficult to pull off the plans that he had built, to undermine Eternum and drag them down into the mud with that short civil war, maybe things would be different. There were other options. It didn't have to go like this. But as the face commentator, I have to say that I am proud of Daniel Stevenson for going out with his the right way. I'm not going to say head held high, because he is clearly having a tough time with the news that he had to break in today's weekly. But I think he has done the right thing by his former faction members. And as a leader, that's all you can ask for. But we can't get hung up on that forever, because at the end of the day, there is still a show. Stamford Wrestling Alliance Primetime rolls on, and it starts with Wesley Lee Morris and Ray Sangre. And look, Wesley Lee Morris, undeniably and perhaps understandably furious about losing to Ray Sangre at the pay-per-view. He has demanded an unsanctioned match to Walter to get revenge for a loss that he believes is unacceptable. Because look, losing a match to Chase in an open challenge, that's an ego hit, right? You stood out and made a promise because you were so confident that no one would get past you to get to Ethan Wilde, and it didn't work out. But at least with Chase, you can look at it and say he's one of the top faces in this company. He's an incredible talent. He is popular. He is loved. He has put in a lot of work. But Ray Sangre, one half of Baja Lucha, the 646 popularity guy, that's a lot harder for an ego man like Wesley Lee Morris is. And so he goes to Ray after talking to Walter and says, we're gonna fight tonight. Got it? And Ray Sangre is like, yeah, I'll fight you tonight. Look, I beat you on the pay-per-view. I'll beat you again. And Wesley just looks him in the eyes and says, there will be no rules. Good luck, bitch. And as he walks away, hate and fury in his eyes, Surfista Hermano Santos just turns to him, his tag partner, and says, hey, if you die, can I have your gear? And that is unfortunately what's going to play out in front of us, folks. This is a Wesley Lee Morris revenge murder for the result of that pay-per-view. It's a 3 3/4 star, which I think is probably a little bit low, all things considered. But at the end of the day, Ray Sangre is just, someone who's very clearly climbing up the card. The gap between these two wrestlers, I think, is playing in there a little bit, as well as a negative role on an unsanctioned match. But at the end of the day, Wesley Morris needs to be a warrior, right? He needs to be this massive monster for short. And I'm glad he got a win. I think it's important to build him up. And Ray Sangre, he's going to have other opportunities. You look at that 74 overness, he'll have his moment. But against Wesley Lee Morris, that's a big ask. Will this be the end of this feud? I mean, it wasn't blow off, so we'll see what Walter has in mind there. But we move on. Trixie Albright versus Talia Adler. And look, Trixie is obviously reeling from the end of the Turnham, but at the end of the day, she's here to wrestle. She's here to do her best and to get opportunities. And Maester Gomez has thankfully opened up some opportunities. Maester made it very clear to Walter she wants fresh challengers for the Mildred S. Robinson Cup. She doesn't want previous champions who weren't good enough to hold on to it, and she doesn't want those who weren't good enough to win when they had a chance to challenge for it, right? That if you had your chance and you failed, then you don't get to come crawling back to me to try to take it. And if you are a fan of Maester Gomez, you might say, well, that makes sense, right? Like, they had their opportunity, they had their opening, they didn't take it. Such is life. Other people deserve a shot. If you're not a fan of Maester Gomez, you might point out that means the only people left are wrestlers that are lower on the card, which is a great way to give yourself some job security if you don't think that these wrestlers have the talent necessary to take you down. But look, Talia Adler, she hates everybody, right? She manages Strong Style and the Empress Kabuki and Made in Japan. But she is also a talented wrestler in her own right. She has gotten wins before in this division. And I think that if she were to win a match here, it would go a long way towards building herself up as an individual star. But at the end of the day, Talia maybe focuses a little bit more on her work elevating the rest of Made in Japan than she does on her own solo stuff. And Trixie, I have to imagine, is just feeling incredibly motivated after seeing the brilliant speech that we got from Daniel Stevenson earlier. And that is enough to propel her to victory. And look, it's a 3.5-star match. Trixie Albright is a 2-star worker. It is very tough to get the highest possible scores when you're working with a 2-star worker. But I think it is nice to see Trixie get the nod here. I like the idea of Trixie, this star in the making, getting some mileage behind her. Honestly, I'm not going to tell Walter how to play the game, but Trixie strikes me as someone who, with a good gimmick, right? A 2-star charisma means it's a little bit more of a role than average, but if you get an easy gimmick from the spreadsheet that we all have looking at how these custom combinations work, and she can get something that gives her a substantial overness boost, Trixie has the potential to become a 3-3 rather than a 2-2. And then you start getting some good quality matches, and her upside becomes a lot more captivating in the short term. Whether he goes that way or not, who can say? What we know for now is that Trixie Albright has won, and with that victory, one step closer to challenging Maestra Gomez for the Mildred S. Robinson Cup. But we go now to the arena, and it looks like Angelina Cardinal is making a promo in the ring. She's like, look, I am not happy with how Psycho Sahana interfered with my match against the Empress at the Harold G. Vincent Memorial Cup. I was finally going to unseat the Empress, and this coward in Psycho Sahana, this absolute coward, emerges from the shadows, cheats to give the Empress an opening, and takes away that opportunity from me. So you know what? If she wants to prove me wrong, if she wants to prove that she's not a coward, that her actions are because she's a genuine threat that deserves an opportunity, she should come down to the ring right now. Come fight me like a true wrestler. And Psycho does not come out to the ring. Angelina just kind of shakes her head, disappointedly walks backstage, and it is when her back is turned after leaving the exit ramp that Psycho Sahana attacks her from behind and hits her with a sneak attack. And I mean, it's absolutely brutal for people who were Psycho Sahana fans. You know, she was the Dream Breaker, which maybe should have given a little bit of a hint that perhaps she was not the face that she put herself out to be at the start here. But look, if you're coming out to help the Empress, we are far from the days of Tatsuno Funo Sentai when Psycho was part of a trio that was trying to take the Empress down. She has realized, perhaps, that it is much better to be on board with the Empress than against the Empress. And this certainly opens some doors for her. Is it enough to get her where she wants to be in the long run? I'm not sure. I suppose it'll really come down to what comes next. We've got a feud started now between Psycho Sahana and Angelina Cardinal. We'll see how much Walter makes of that in the weeks to come. But it's a nice 5-star segment, really well executed. The 2 charisma from Psycho Sahana clearly not mattering. And at the end of the day, I just wonder how the Empress is going to use a tool like Psycho Sahana. Because the Empress is very powerful. She doesn't need the help. And when someone is in her corner acting interference like this, that makes her even more difficult to take down. But we move on now to a very interesting match between Kingdom Come and the Irish Lads. And look, the Irish Lads, this is Craig Opley and Paddy Gilman. They're one of the highest popularity tags that this division has to offer. They were made for the event, and they saw an opportunity, especially since, Down Under's been struggling recently, right? Maybe this is the chance for Craig Opley and Paddy Gilman to get the shots that they don't believe they're getting in the singles division. But really, this is a story about Kingdom Come, right? Drew King goes up to Jules Murphy and apologizes for the fact that he lost that spot against Devlin. He's like, look, I did my best to give you those opportunities. I'm trying to help you out here with this Kingdom Come tag, and you know, I feel like we had something going, right? We lost to the eventual champions in the first round, but it felt good to wrestle together, right? Maybe we can spend some cash, get it across Walter's desk, and he'll give us an opportunity to challenge for the tag title. Wouldn't that be fun? Maybe, or hell, we'll just take out Prodigious. We'll get revenge. We'll get the contract for Winter Zone, and we'll make our move then. And Jules Murphy just kind of looks at him and goes, "Look, I'll admit it. I've enjoyed our time together. I didn't think I would after everything we've been through, but you have made good on your word. It has been fun. And I'm not here to use money to get our way. I think we can earn it without having to resort to that. But if you're willing to do things the right way, to trust in our work and our potential here, I'm happy to keep working together." And it turns out that's exactly what happens here. This is, Drew King as the heel. There are opportunities in which he could do some shady stuff. Perhaps, use a dirty hit that, someone like a Jules Murphy would not approve of. But they didn't need it. They just fought good, honest tag wrestling. And it was a great match, a hot match that boosts the overness of both competitors here, boosts the popularity of both competitors. Got a 4 3/4 star match. Made Patty Gilman over with the fans. That's huge. That's at least a 4-3, perhaps a 4-4. I'd have to go back and check Craig Opley's stats, but that is a huge boost for him. It's a nice feud starter. And oh, by the way, Jules Murphy hit Craig Opley with his finisher off the top rope for Walter's first holy shit moment of the night. You love to see it, folks. And that's just, I love the story that's building here with the Kingdom. I can't wait to see how these two eventually rub off on each other. I think it would be very easy for the money and the power to have corrupted Jules Murphy. But we're seeing some signs that perhaps Jules Murphy is bringing out the best in Drew King. And as the face announcer of this group, I have to admit, it's a really nice change of pace. Given the heel love that we typically see from the Stanford Wrestling Alliance. But look, we move on now to a main event package. This is Connor Creedon continuing his attempt to take the Intercontinental title from Heizo Ogawa. The lads versus Made in Japan has been quite the feud. Made in Japan finally got the victory at the last pay-per-view. But that doesn't mean that the factions being done feuding puts aside the feud that Connor has had with Heizo. They were feuding before the faction feud. They're now continuing after that faction feud. And he believes he deserves that shot. We will see that match come together later tonight. But this package really focuses on Connor Creedon and his push to take that Intercontinental title back. But before we get there, we have a few other matches that are super interesting, including this match between Down Under and AR-60. And look, I mentioned earlier, Down Under are struggling, right? They were the tag champions. They were undefeated, 6-0. Incredible performances across the board. They're incredible workers. Sean Torres, Matt Militant, great individually, better as a tag. Arguably the most talented tag from a pure stats and traits perspective that the Stanford Wrestling Alliance has. But wrestling matches are not determined by who looks the best on paper, because there are intangibles that matter here. And Down Under seem to be reeling a little bit. Their mental just doesn't seem to be there. There's this constant incredulous, how are we not winning these matches that seem to be right in our grasp? And that was one of the reasons they fell out of the tag tournament, right? And at the end of the day, right, Prodigious have the contract for a title belt, but there's still 2 months to climb up the rankings and either challenge for the contract or challenge for the title itself. And Down Under needs to pull it together to make that happen. On the other hand, AR-60, two people who, again, very much part of Eternum, right? Eternum was this weird mix of faces and heels, even after Chort departed. But AR-60, this is their attempt to find their place in this division, right? If they're not part of Eternum, what are they? Well, we know one thing. We know M60's got this really nice beard now. He's grown his hair out. New hair, new attitude, perhaps. Maybe this is one of those, he'll shave it once he's won the tag title, but until then, he's growing it out like we see in a lot of those old sports playoff runs. We'll have to ask him sometime, but I will admit, I love the look. I love that AR-60 are firmly focused on proving themselves as individuals. They believe that they have what it takes, that Eternum's disbanding does not get in the way of what they're moving towards. And it does result in a victory for them. And it's a 5-star match, incredible match. Down Under taking another morale hit. They are, as I said, absolutely reeling. They just don't know what it's going to take to finally get a win. If they can't get a win against an AR-60 that should be struggling, right? That should mentally be having a hard time finding their place now that they've lost their faction, what will it take to get a win? And the answer was, we don't know for now. We'll have to wait and see what this means moving forward. But AR-60, they progressed to 4-4, Down Under fall to 6-6, and that means that as far as the rankings are concerned, AR-60 wins a tiebreaker against Down Under, and it comes down to Walter making decisions about opportunities. That's big. But we now cut to a backstage segment. You knew that if Eternum was disbanding, someone was going to ask Ethan Wilde about it. And Susie, the interviewer for the Stanford Wrestling Alliance, comes out to Ethan and says, Ethan, after the disillusion of Eternum, do you have any remorse for ruining Daniel Stevenson's career? Which, I'll be honest, I think that's a loaded question, but that's the question she asks. And Ethan responds, Susie, I'm shocked you'd ask me such a question. I just defended my title at the Cup against the SWA's new flavor of the week, and you think I care about Eternum or Daniel Stevenson? Chort proved that we were right. At every turn, we proved that we were better than them. Hell, we're better than the lads. Craig Opley couldn't prevent me from taking what's rightfully mine, and Chase beating Wesley 2 weeks ago was a fluke that I handedly proved isn't capable of holding a title in this company. Connor is flying too close to the sun. Tyler wants to implode his career by challenging Devlin. I've beaten anyone and everyone. And if you think there's an up-and-comer that will catch me off guard, just ask Kyle Lucha what I do to rookies. But here, I'll say something about Daniel Stevenson. Daniel, my friend, you just couldn't help yourself, could you? You had to let your friends down one more time. And now they'll be cast into the wilderness where the vultures will pick at their corpses. And it's all your fault. And then he just drops the mic and walks away. Susie, staggered, just does not know how to respond to the brutality of the murder by words we just saw by Ethan Wilde. It's a 3 3/4 star segment. It looks like that's 100% effectiveness, just the kind of segment that needs a lot of uses before it's going to increase its potential. But you love to see it hit its maximum at the very least. And yeah, I mean, look, Ethan is brutal. There's a reason Walter loves to use him. There are very few heels that are as fun to utilize as one Ethan Wilde. And I mean, it's gotta hurt for Daniel. But I think if you are the ex-Eternum members, you can point to tonight's card and prove that last bit wrong. They are not cast into the wilderness. They are building themselves back up into something better. And if Ethan Wilde underestimates that, well, we'll see what that would mean for himself in short. But for now, he's going to walk his victory lap, and he's goddamn earned it. So who am I to criticize the attitude that he is bringing here? Well, speaking of some attitude, we've got a prove yourself feud between the Scribners and the catering crew. Because at the end of the day, catering crew, you look at Virginia Warbler, and he has been continuing a crusade against the Scribners as a whole for a while now, right? Sure, catering crew fell in the opening round to Hollywood Bound, but they liked working together, right? Kevin Bates, an incredibly likable guy. There's a reason Walter has gone out of his way to give him opportunities despite him being lower on the card. And the two of them bouncing back and forth makes a lot of sense. But if you're going to try to rise through the ranks, you start at the bottom. And unfortunately for the Scribners, that's where they find themselves right now. They are 0-4 in tag competition. They have yet to secure a victory. And Livia Scribner is furious with her brothers, right? This was an underwhelming performance at the Harold G. Vincent Cup. This was meant to be their opportunity to be like Cobra Gaston and make a statement. And they failed. So she makes it very clear. You need to go out there and prove that you belong in this family. And luckily for the Scribners, they do indeed prove that tonight. It's a 4.5-star card. And a very nice win for them. No holy shit moment, but it starts a nice feud between the two. And I think, if you are catering crew, obviously it hurts, but you're still finding your footing, right? This is a back and forth that I imagine we're going to see for a while now. I think that Kevin Bates and Virginia Warbler have both showed a tenacity to bounce back from defeat. But right now, the Scribners have to be feeling good. They have not hit rock bottom. They are still better than pretenders, as they would put it, like catering crew. So congratulations to them. You don't have to go sleep outside tonight. But we move on to the SWA Intercontinental Championship, our main event, an Iron Man match between Heizo Ogawa and Connor Creedon. And look, we talked about Connor in the main event package. It was largely focused on him saying, I am not done with you yet, right? I want that title shot. I don't care if the faction feud is over. I don't care that you've beaten me in the past. And look, maybe I've been too focused on Neon Wings. And we lose that match because Down Under was the one who had to step up, and they didn't have the same synergy with some of our other wrestlers in that 4v4. But I'm going to focus on what matters to me, and right now that's taking you out. And the thing about Heizo Ogawa, that doesn't faze him at all, right? Because Kaito Sakura, as Ogawa's manager, is like, look, Heizo's a fighting champion, right? You want to wrestle? He gets paid to wrestle. I get paid to help him wrestle. And I'm happy to defend this title tonight. Anytime you want a match, Connor Creedon, come to me. I'll put you in your place and remind you why I'm the champion. And unfortunately for Connor Creedon, that's exactly what Heizo does tonight in this Iron Man match. It is a 3-2 score, so Connor does get his moments. It's only a 4.25-star match, which is a little bit of a low roll. I don't quite understand. You're looking at, this is where it can be frustrating, I'm sure, for Walter, and I'm just going to articulate his frustration here. You have 2 4-star workers. The match goes hot, and the game tells you that it went hot, gives you all these bonuses. You got an Iron Man match increase, and Jules Murphy got that was not actually the Holy Shit. That was from a previous match, excuse me. But still, all of these things feel like they should have led to something higher than a 4.25-star match. But that's the nature of the beast. RNG exists in this game, and sometimes you just low roll, and you have to live with that. But at the end of the day, it's a nice boost for the Intercontinental Championship. That continues to do very well as a belt. I would not be surprised if that is gold in the very near future, especially if Heizo Ogawa is truly the fighting champion that he claims to be. And the Iron Man match going gold is a big goal that Walter had heading into the night. That unlocks casket matches, that unlocks brawl matches, and that gives some more narrative opportunities. So sure, did it make as much cash as it could at this match, not as much. But I'll be honest, that's a lot better than I thought he was going to do. That is incredible. Wow. Okay. I mean, look, if you look at, assume that these two things get dropped, right? Sure, you have one more not so great match here, but you got 5, 4 3/4, 4.5, 5, another 3 3/4, but another 4.5 and 4.25 doubled. I didn't think that he got to 4.5. I'll be honest with you. But congrats to him for doing so. That's an incredible score to start these weeklies with. And he's going to be very glad to have it. And of course, for those of you who maybe watch the pay-per-views, don't always pay attention to the weeklies, the thing to keep in mind is that these scores are cumulative for the weeklies over these 3 weekly shows that we get between pay-per-views. So 4.5 is a very good score. It is a score that has been the top score in previous weeklies. Last time the average score was just about a 4.5. It ended up being, I think, like a 4.67. So a 4.5 in the opening weekly, very much a respectable performance, and one that I think is going to treat him very well. With that, we move on to Glory of Legends Wednesday Night Triumph. I can't remember the last time that Xander, of all people, was in third place after a pay-per-view. But at the end of the day, I feel like he and I battled back and forth for the hype title, only for Eduardo to sneak right on past us with some incredible quality matches. I can let you guys know right now, Xander is not going to let that mistake happen again. There is a reason that he is number 1 in this competition so far. He has a new person that's going to be coming in very soon, so look out for James Sakura joining Glory of Legends sooner rather than later. But for tonight, he's got quite an action-packed show, and I can't wait to show y'all exactly what he has in store. So let's get on into it, and it starts with an interesting match, an I Quit match between Regan Awesome and Animal Fukuoka. Because look, Animal Fukuoka has been fighting for his spot within the Glory of Legends promotion, right? He joined in June and has not found a faction yet to call home. Maybe he doesn't want one. Maybe none of them have been impressed enough by him so far in order to extend that invite. Perhaps they're just all busy feuding other people and don't really have the time to hold tryouts right now. But at the end of the day, Regan Awesome, I think, saw a danger in Animal, right? He has been trying to keep him down with this is our home feud back in June, perhaps realizing that if you put a guy like Animal Fukuoka, the leader of Animal House, into a faction like Burn It All Down, it could be very dangerous for everything that he and Bright Future are trying to build, right? So far, it's been a 2-2 battle. Both of these wrestlers have gotten victories. Regan won in a street fight last month, but Animal won at a pay-per-view at Pendulum Drop. So at the end of the day, this match sets the tone for everything that is going to come for these two moving forward. This breaks the tie. And luckily for the Animal, he has taken the victory tonight. It's a 4 3/4 star match, a hot match that pushes that feud even further. You know, it's not like either of these wrestlers needed a huge overness boost, but they're certainly going to take an overness boost. And Xander will be very happy with a 4.75 star card match to start the card tonight. But we move on to a throwback, really. Anastasia versus Danny Cole. And look, I have to admit, I do find it very funny that Danny Cole's gimmick is Bright Future, even though they are a member of Brigantia, when a faction called Bright Future exists within this company. But putting that to the side for a moment, this is a feud that started all the way back in January at Toxic Teardown, the first pay-per-view we ever did. But outside of Anastasia's win on a First Blood match back in January on a weekly, both of these wrestlers basically spent January losing to Heiko and Moto. And then they didn't wrestle after January until June, when Hinata Shiroki defeated Anastasia and Danny Cole at Bring the Heat. So this is a feud that's kind of laid dormant for a bit, and it's easy to understand why, right? Danny Cole, as a member of Brigantia Rising, and specifically the Brigantia Trio, has been focused largely on their role in the trios division, right? They don't have a lot of solo matches compared to some other competitors in their division. But this seems like a return to focus, right? With the Hot Gates and Police Demos and Young Revolution all kind of dominating the title picture for now. This is an opportunity for Danny Cole to assert themselves and really make a mark on this promotion. Meanwhile, for Anastasia, right, she is just 2-12 in singles competition, and she's lost her last 5, and that's tough. Now, granted, a lot of those have been against Jade Gatlin, who's been a strong competitor, but I think the toughest part for Anastasia has not been losing to Jade. It's been that she's basically only appeared at pay-per-views for the last few months. She needs to break out of that. She needs to make her mark on the singles division with a victory tonight. And luckily for her in this street fight, she manages to do just that. It is a 4.25-star card, a very nice match. Minor hits to Danny Cole's morale and popularity, but nothing that cannot be handled later on down the line. It's just solid wrestling at the end of the day. I think a win for Anastasia probably does more for her because at the end of the day, once some of these feuds that have gone cold have a chance to come back, I have a feeling we'll see Brigantia start doing some more things in the trios division. I do hope the best for Danny Cole. I'm looking at that 73 overness, and it sure would be nice to have a 4-3 rather than a 3-2. But Anastasia, the hardcore lady, I think falling to 2-13 would have been rough. So I am happy for her sake that she gets the victory tonight. And now we get to a really interesting segment, right? Sinister Tengu has taken Callie Vicious out to the ring and is trying to make a pitch on why she should join Bright Future and why Bright Future is the best option for her moving forward. I mean, look at what I've been able to do as part of Young Revolution, right? We're the Triple Glory champions. We have some really talented people that have joined us. I mean, look, Regan Awesome could have joined For the People, and he didn't, right? He chose us, and he chose us for a reason. And if you join us, we can set you up, right? We'll give you more than Police Demos ever could. But in a shocking twist, just as it seems like she is about to come around to the idea, she instead turns to attack Sinister and beat him down. But to call off the attack, to try to dissuade further push that could increase the damage he's taking, he calls the ref and says, hey, if this is what she wants, let's make it a match. That's the right way for this to go. She can't just beat me senseless like this. And Callie looks at the ref and says, okay, let's do a match. And before we get into that match, we should point out that's a 5-star segment. That's a 6.3% overness boost to Callie, a huge popularity boost for her, pushes her gimmick forward, levels up the Vicious beatdown, so it has even more of an entertainment value in the future. And look, we could just pretend like Theo Walters didn't cost it a 1/4 of a star, when clearly it could have been the first over 5-star segment that we've seen in a good while. It's a 5-star segment. The fans are in. The bridges are burned indeed, especially because Fighting the Darkness has increased the hype of that particular feud, really given it a nice push here. And here is the ambulance match. It almost feels like Callie saw this coming, right? That she knew that Sinister Tengu was going to call for a match to defend his honor if she beat him down. And thus, she has done so. She's prepared an ambulance in the corner to take Sinister Tengu out when she gets this victory, a victory that it's no secret she believes is going to easily be hers as a result of this beatdown. And, you know, as the face announcer, right, this is a tragedy as far as I'm concerned, right? Like, sure, she had a 1-7 record, but she had a 4.61 average match rating, which is above average for her popularity level, right? I understand that doing something like this puts her in larger conversations for the women's division, but you have to stick the landing and you have to wonder what happens afterwards. What does Callie Vicious's career look like? Because as a heel, who knows whose side she's going to be able to team up with. And for Sinister Tengu, look, he is the Triple Glory champion, right? Young Revolution have held it for 3 months. He's been a part of that. He's also 0-8 as a singles competitor. And look, I can clown on him being part of Bright Future and Young Revolution, despite being older than the majority of wrestlers on Xander's roster. And I have before, and I will again. But the most important thing here is that this is a guy who hasn't won a singles match, and he just got his crap kicked in, right? Sure, he's a great teammate. He's an entertainer. He's done some great work in the past. But right now, Callie Vicious orchestrated a situation that would make it pretty impossible for him to keep up. And this has got to be one of those scores that feels conflicting for Xander. It is a 3.5-star match, which isn't necessarily what he wanted. It's an ambulance match decrease for the effect. But, 1, Callie Vicious hits Sinister Tengu with a lariat that knocked his head off. That's a holy shit moment and basically pays for the ambulance match. And 2, the feud between Callie Vicious and Sinister Tengu has gone hot in a single match. So this is something he will have to play around with moving forward, and that is a nice tool to have in the back pocket, absolutely. And as Sinister Tengu gets pulled away into this ambulance and driven off to heal from these injuries, we see exactly why she did this. Callie gets on the mic and says that she could not stand the weakness of these face factions. She has seen what Burn It All Down has done, and she asked for the opportunity to join a faction that can elevate her to where she deserves to be. And Executioner Goro saw this hunger and said, look, if you want a seat at the table, there's a price, and it's the blood of Bright Future. And with the win over Sinister Tengu, the absolutely brutal beatdown followed by an ambulance match that has him being dragged away in clear defeat. I mean, that is the brutality that Burn It All Down loves, and it's no surprise that they have now welcomed her with open arms. It's a 5-star segment. It adds Callie Vicious's popularity. It's a nice boost for her, which with all these other matches, I think, I mean, let's see, 726, adding another 27. I mean, she's going to be less than 50 points away from becoming a main eventer. So if her job was to climb up the card where she believes she deserves to be, I mean, this is how you do it. This is how in Glory of Legends you get opportunities. And I can hate the method, right? I can say that there's a righteousness in standing up against people like Burn It All Down, but I have to acknowledge the results. And for Burn It All Down, it's a nice addition. They're now just 6 experience away from becoming a Reputation 9 faction. That is hard to do. And they've done it because they have stepped up time and time again. And look, New Blood, now it's got the action increased for this segment item. It is an even bigger boost, an even higher maximum score moving forward. And I gotta say, given how successfully Xander has reached 100% efficiency on segments like this and like Vicious Beatdown, just a little bit concerning as a competitor for the number of 5+ star segments he might have in the very near future. But we move on now. And Aiden Astral has decided he needs to prove that he isn't just a member of Canodicarius, but he is underrated as a heel. He is a fearsome individual, and he goes to attack Christian Quinn as he tries to, enter the building to get started with his day. And Christian, of course, takes off, tries to get in his car, and Aiden absolutely cuts that off. And as Christian runs away, left with nothing but rage, Aiden Astral takes a baseball bat and absolutely beats Quinn's car to shit. It is a brutal car destruction segment, and one that I mean, look, obviously, Police Demos and Kenoto Karius have been feuding for a bit. Obviously, the Hot Gates and Wagon Raid started a feud pretty recently. But, I mean, I don't think Christian Quinn was expecting to be attacked quite like this. Aiden Astral eventually is going to catch up with him, but at this time, Christian Quinn gets the rest of the Hot Gates together, and Aiden Astral just gives a quick whistle, and Wagon Raid comes to his aid. And the ref immediately calls for a trio elimination match. It is as if Johnny Hangtime knew what Aiden Astral had planned and set up the opportunity for Wagon Raid to make a statement tonight. And look, let's be clear. Kenoto Karius has done some great things, but they do need to make a statement here, right? They're 0-2 at the moment as a trio. And yes, it's very easy to say they've been going up against Young Revolution the entire time, right? They've only lost to the champions. And there's no shame in that. But at the end of the day, when someone like Aiden Astral is that aggressive, you have to prove that you are more than just the best of the low tiers. You can't just win a fight like this against the Hot Gates. You have to do so with a level of brutality and skill that makes no one question where you belong in this trios division. And look, Hot Gates are just starting out. Police Demos was only founded last month. They're, kind of an answer to what Kenoto Karius has done, right? They're the low-tier faction that fans who want to root for can believe in, right? Who are going to grow something together and build something, compared to Kenoto Karius, which, as Aiden just showed the world, cares a lot more about tearing things down, right? Tearing apart the status quo that has dominated this company. Kenoto Karius is attacking people left, right, and center all of the time. And Police Demos wants to climb and do it the right way. And unfortunately for them, it turns out the right way doesn't get you very far against a group like Wagon Raid. It's only a 3.5-star match. I have to imagine. Okay, this is not ideal. I'm sure hopefully the cloud save fixes itself in a moment. But yes, this is an elimination match decrease. That's how we get to the score like this. Aiden Astral was about to hit Hiromu Inchi with a finisher before they both collapsed from exhaustion. That is a nice holy shit moment and something that they're going to take with them. But yeah, a negative roll here with two factions that are a little bit lower on the card means it's only 3.5 stars. And while they did get the win, and it's a good win and one they can be proud of, it was not nearly the dominant force that they were hoping for. Xander Cage just outlasted the Hot Gates, and he had to get all 3 eliminations himself. And that's, look, battling from a 1v2 situation is something to be proud of. But, Aiden Astral, after talking a lot of shit, after attacking Christian Quinn's car, first to be eliminated and by Christian Quinn. So maybe he just expended too much of his energy attacking the car instead of keeping his eye on the prize. We'll have to find out. But for now, we do move on to a match between Gavin Evans and Krieger. And look, Gavin has been trying to tell everybody at Glory of Legends that he wants to be considered a true factionless talent like Dietrich, right? He already proved that he can command some people, right? That ring invasion that he used to save himself from being attacked by Burn It All Down a couple pay-per-views ago was a huge moment for him. And it gave him the kind of popularity and overness boost to bring him into the 4-4 main eventer that he is today. But he thinks it's not just enough to be like Dietrich, right? He wants to do more good while climbing than someone like Saki Slab or Dietrich Mullen has. It's not, necessarily a slight, but a personal challenge to himself, He's 1-7. He's lost his last 6 matches. It has been a long time since we have heard winner Gavin Evans on a show like this. And so he's here to call out his own personal war against Burn It All Down, to get revenge against this faction, and to prove that he has what it takes to stand up against some of the best they have to offer. And, for Krieger, right, he's someone that can sometimes feel a little bit more like a manager than as a talent in his own right? I mean, 10 matches is certainly not a small number of matches. He's found his way in and out of certain feuds, and he got a win somewhat recently. But he is 2-8 at this point in time. And he needs a win to prove himself, to move up the power rankings and be stronger and look stronger than the talent that he manages. He wants to be more than that. But unfortunately tonight, he's going up against a Gavin Evans that is rejuvenated. But unfortunately for Xander, it's another low roll. I mean, Krieger taking an overness and morale hit, it's nothing he can't handle per se. But that is not the role he wanted here. It is indeed another match decrease. That's his third match decrease effect in a row, which is crazy. But what's crazier, right, is that all of these came with a holy shit moment. Gavin Evans and Krieger starting a battle of the forearms before both kicked each other's heads off. And, I mean, if you're Xander, like, what are you supposed to do, right? The crowd is loving these individual moments. They're here for what he's building from a hype perspective. But the critics and whatever fans are going on to the, circled square subreddit in this particular universe are just not giving him the scores that you typically see from Glory of Legends. And look, it is not the end of the card. He has had some strong segments here, but I imagine he's going to look at these and be a little bit frustrated at some of the low rolls that he has had tonight. But we move on. It's a main event package, and this main event focuses on Total War returning. It is Conquest or Death versus Burn It All Down, which in Glory of Legends was one of the hottest feuds in the history of this competition, and insanely good back and forth, with Conquest or Death ultimately barely hanging on, thanks to Johnny Hangtime. Burn It All Down got the majority of the wins at their self-named pay-per-view, but Conquest or Death was originally more dominant at Marauder Mayhem, the pay-per-view that happened just 1 month prior. So the question becomes, right, which of these two powerhouses within Glory of Legends, these two factions that have each had quite a few title holders, that have had a lot of back and forth regardless of the faction feud, what happens when they come together and they fight as units, when they fight as factions that are looking for the opportunity to not just prove themselves, but to destroy and dismantle an opposing faction that they believe is an existential threat to what they're doing. And look, Burn It All Down had a big night and No Escape. There is no doubt whatsoever about that. But, there are plenty of people in Conquest or Death that are also doing quite well. Like, look, Johnny is in the ring tonight as a special referee, which may or may not give you an idea of where this match is going, but Phil Hangtime arguably doesn't need the help. He's won his last 2 matches. He's 10-4 overall. He beat Sho Fujino at Marauder Mayhem in a First Blood match back in the day, and he just did it at No Escape in an ambulance match. That on and off feud has always been in Phil Hangtime's favor. The only time in which Phil hasn't been able to beat Sho Fujino is when Executioner Goro was in the match and took the belt at Burn It All Down. But look, Sho Fujino, right, he is loved by the fans. He's this mysterious assassin type, and sure, he's 2-10. But he's going to, he had a win somewhat recently at Bring the Heat. And at the end of the day, as long as he's in it, he has a chance, right? With someone like Krieger by his side, he has an opportunity to take on someone like Phil Hangtime and maybe, just maybe, turn things in their favor. But at the end of the day, it's Phil Hangtime. Johnny is in the ring, and he has no interest in letting the Total War start with a Burn It All Down victory. And this is the benefit of holding the Emperor's belt as long as Johnny has. He decides who is going to be the referee in these matches. And Sho Fujino learns the hard way that is a tough hill to climb. It's a 4 3/4 star match. I can already hear Xander's "That's More Like It" in my head. Says a lot that Total War is starting at 222 hype. Really was just an incredible feud built off of here. And look, the men's lightweight championship continues to get a nice experience boost, right? Phil Hangtime has been a strong belt holder. And that is going to give Xander the 4.5 stars that I know he was looking for. It keeps pace with Walter. It's a very good showing. He got those holy shit moments. I think the odds of him rolling 3 negative match effects in matches that still manage to get holy shit moments, not likely to happen again, and something that competitors here should not count on in the future. But the important things here were accomplished, right? Callie Vicious turning heel was a big boost for her. Burn It All Down getting a big boost by adding her to the faction. Everyone in Burn It All Down getting some amount of popularity as a result of that is really nice for that faction. Aiden Astral and Christian Quinn. I mean, we already see the storyline. Aiden destroys the car, Christian destroys Aiden, but it's not enough to stop the wagon raid. And I mean, Total War is Total War. I don't need to tell you that Conquest or Death versus Burn It All Down is going to be a great story to follow moving forward. So congratulations to Xander for that. We move on now to Magically Enhanced Wrestling. And oh boy, am I excited to share some of the storylines that I've got planned. Of course, Crown of Madness was such a huge pay-per-view for this company. We saw Arsenico with the cash-in, making himself the Sorcerer Supreme, promising some big changes that perhaps we're going to hear about tonight. But it has been a real change of the guard, a lot of titles shifting hands, with the Hellfire Club being one of the biggest winners, alongside Independence, which has continued to grow bit by bit over the course of the last few months. And I cannot wait to show you. So I'm just going to stop waiting and get right to it. And it starts with Arsenico coming out into the ring. And that's an interesting mechanic that I did not think about, but I guess is fine. So it turns out when you take someone face and then you move them back to being a heel too soon, people have some opinions on that. And that's fine. I'll be honest, just for my competitors that are watching, my goal here was to game the system a little bit. I will admit to that. I wanted him to be a face while he was fighting heels, and now that he is ready to fight off some faces, I wanted him to be a heel again, because that's how the game's bonuses work. That's the thing I had in mind. Luckily, none of the other people that I plan to change along with him have this problem. And -9 overness is something that he can deal with in time. Gameplay aside, let's get to the story here. Arsenico comes out in the ring with Johnny and says that his victories over Adrian Lorenzo and Fishbone at Crowd of Madness are proof that everything is as he said it would be. He is tapped in to the divine nature of this world, and as such, he knows what this company needs in order to succeed. He knows how this world should be built to move on from the outdated faction system into something beautiful like Independence. And while Independence will have no problem in his mind continuing to put down the savages from the Southern Centuries, he has two bigger ambitions now that he is in charge. First, he wants El Muerte Blanco's blight on this promotion to be removed. El Muerte Blanco proved, as far as Arsenico is concerned, that he is not built to rule. He has been given multiple opportunities to prove himself and has ultimately resorted to shoddy tactics and cheap attacks on his own people in order to get himself ahead. And so he's going to give those other people in the Northern Nightmare the same offer and the same opportunity, perhaps, that El Muerte Blanco took when he first attacked La Bestia del Infierno to become the Flame Warlock champion. Arsenico does not say how much, but he offers a sizable reward for any wrestler within the Northern Nightmare willing to do the right thing and take him out. Second, Arsenico wants to hold the Eastern Elite accountable for their failure to keep things in line during Fishbone's Lane. The Hellfire Club were a kind of chaos that should have been dealt with personally rather than being allowed to fester into a power that now holds 3 different belts. And Independence is not going to tolerate that kind of menace again. It is time for a new age for magically enhanced wrestling, forged in his divine image. And I gotta tell you, when someone starts talking about a new age forged in their divine image, that cult leader might not be a face anymore. So, look, the game can get mad at me for turning him too quickly. 9 overness is something that I think Arsenico is going to be able to get back easily. He's still very much over. I'm not concerned about it. I do like that it's a 4 1/4 star segment. I was kind of hoping perhaps that Johnny Scott as his manager, someone who has more charisma, would maybe help it a little bit, but it's 100% efficiency. I think it's just the kind of thing where I haven't done a lot of villainized segments before, but if you can't guess by the story I'm telling with Independence, you might see a few new ones coming forward. But, of course, Gavin Smith is furious as this member of the Southern Centuries, one of the rabid dogs, the savages, as Independence has called him on multiple occasions, and he tries to cut Arsenico off, right? Just attack him in the ring while he's finishing his speech. But Monty Hendrix, the gift from God of Independence, cuts him off before he can do so. And look, Monty and Gavin have quite a history together, right? They've been feuding on and off since January, mostly at pay-per-views during the Ashton Nieves era, and when Monty Hendrix briefly held the championship back when he first won it at Broken Oaths, right? They were in these back and forth pay-per-view matches together, but anytime it's been Monty and Gavin, Monty has won. He's won 3 times so far. And the last time, he seemed almost disappointed by Gavin refusing to change, refusing to focus on trying to build himself up rather than just trying to hurt people. That's been a big criticism of Gavin for a while. He's here to hurt. He's not here to win. But Monty says today, I am going to resort to whatever it takes to make you learn why you should never mess with someone chosen by God. And Monty's going to put that man in the back of an ambulance. It's a blow-off for the feud, a feud that has been going on for a long time. Gavin takes a little bit of a morale and overness hit because he has lost a lot of times, but it's a 5 1/4 star match, a nice boost for the ambulance match. It's a holy shit moment as Monty reversed Gavin's finisher, cursing at him and hitting his own. That's 30 creativity points, and that, to me, is a very successful match. But Monty, I gotta say, a lot of words there that would be a little bit concerning if you were hoping that Monty would stand strong in the face of some of these harsher words that Arsenico is throwing out there. But I'm out in the ring right now to welcome back Devin Moxie. Devin Moxie was injured at Mana Unleashed back in March with a broken back. But thanks to the incredible medical staff here at Magically Enhanced Wrestling that definitely did not misclick to spend 120 creativity points unnecessarily, he is back in action with a Wolverine-like recovery. And I suppose I'll use the other Wolverine one when the game screws me over on an injury in the near future. Is what it is. No undo button in Journey of Wrestling. You can't undo life. You can't undo a misclick here. But look, Devin Moxie, this is his night, right? This is his moment. He's 0-3 in singles competition, but it's mostly been in battle royales, right? He was at these, he was a pay-per-view only wrestler for a bit, and he was looking for an opportunity now to stand out from the pack now that he's back. He gets on the mic and he makes it clear that he's willing to do whatever it takes to stand out as more than just some creep filling out a roster slot. He believes he's more than that, and he's ready to prove it, and the fans are in. It's a huge overness boost for him, which I absolutely needed. That turns him from a 3-3 into a 4-4 and gives him a lot of opportunities. He's definitely someone who's a little bit lower on my card as far as popularity goes, but now that he's a 4-4, this opens up some doors for him to do some cool things. He will not be wrestling tonight. Northern Nightmare just happy to not be Reputation 1, I suppose, thanks to having a hot member come back here. At the end of the day, I can be mad about hitting the wrong button and having a lower creativity point bank amount than I would like, but I am genuinely happy that Devin Moxie is back, and I do wonder if he is the kind of person who might take advantage of that offer Arsenico put out at the start of the show. He said he'd do anything, right? Would that include stepping up against El Muerte Blanco on his first night back? Well, we'll have to see. But in the meantime, Shane Mack has come into the ring. And he wants to praise Independence for their move tonight. But he is doing so via criticism of Glory of Legends. Because as Shane puts it, Johnny Hangtime's Conquest or Death has become a mess. Brothers fighting brothers, second in commands like Emily Everett, feuding for the crown that Johnny holds rather than expanding their own territory. The rise of chaotic and dangerous factions like Burn It All Down and Kenoto Karius because Johnny Hangtime doesn't know how to rule a kingdom without resorting to special referees and cheap manipulative tactics. Shane is here to assure the crowd that Independence will never allow something like that to happen, as they were united as those chosen by Arsenico's divine vision to maintain order and fix the sins created by a faction system that has intrinsically always played favorites. And I mean, look, I'm not saying that Johnny Hangtime has done a bad job. I'm just saying that if the goal is order and structure and his faction getting every opportunity possible, Shane's not wrong about how much chaos Johnny Hangtime has left under his wake. And it seems like the fans agree with me here. It's a nice 5-star segment. I'm not seeing any negative effect on Glory of Legends, but it does give me a little bit more hype, which I'm happy to see. And I'm happy for Shane Mack to have had an opportunity on the mic, He's someone that has been seen as kind of a filler spot within Independence, and I think he has certainly made a statement tonight. But we move on. Ryu Otake, Rico Inoki in a tables match, continuing this Independence versus Southern Centuries feud. And look, Ryu and Riku have been fighting since March on Mana Unleashed when Ryu Otake beat him in a last man standing match. And Ryu at this point feels the need to close that chapter of his life, right? He has been on and off with Riku for a while, but at this point, he's fighting for his place within Independence leadership, right? He and Monty Hendricks are both very high in terms of their popularity rating, and only one of them can be chosen by Arsenico as the true second in command. And if you're Ryu Otake, the dragon of the Independence movement, ignore that just says SDPW, it's definitely Independence that he's the dragon of. He needs to win, and he needs to put people like Riku, who are arguably beneath him at this point, to the side. And meanwhile, Riku has talked to Jan Sanake, and they believe they need to focus on restoring Savage Vengeance as a tag team and getting them to greater heights, rather than getting hung up on singles feuds. So they, too, are happy to call for an end here. Now, it's a little bit easier for Jan to say because Miracle, who was the only solo person he was feuding against, and Miracle Oda's out for 9 months because the game sometimes doesn't like me very much. But in this case, Riku is in alignment with his tag partner. But unfortunately, the Dragon of Independence is just too much to overcome. It's a 5-star match, and thankfully, it looks like it went hot because there's no negative effect on Riku for losing this feud, only a popularity boost for him. It's a 5-star match. It sets the feud hot, which I knew was possible. But again, at the end of the day, I wasn't trying to min-max this feud. I was trying to min-max the narrative opportunities that open up for Ryu when he doesn't have someone like Riku on his heel. And now Riku and Jan, it's a tough loss, and Riku's can feel bad about that. But at the end of the day, Jan Sanake's in his corner. Savage Vengeance have a plan, and we are going to see them in the tag division doing some big things soon enough. Oh, by the way, Ryu Otake refused to give up as he crawled around for 2 minutes in Riku Inoki's submission, getting 30 creativity points, a second holy shit moment of the night. I believe that is 2 holy shit moments in 2 matches, which I'm going to take as a win. But now, we ignore them saying out in the ring because that's not what's happening here. In the locker room, Eli Chaos is starting to get ready for his match, and he goes to congratulate Monty Hendrix on a well-fought victory. Look, we both hate the Southern Sentries, and, Independence, Monty, you've done a great job of putting them down. Now, I have to admit, though, you know that what Arsenico's doing here is something that's going to be a little bit of a conflict for us, right? I mean, Fishbone was Sorcerer Supreme and deserved a fair fight against Arsenico rather than a cash-in after he was exhausted. And, Arsenico said some weird things towards the end about, like, needing to get revenge at the Eastern Elite for not doing enough while they were in charge. And what was up with that? He doesn't mean that, right? And Monty absolutely lashes out at Eli Chaos, pushes him up against the lockers, and yells at him for daring to question Arsenico's words. Because as Monty explains, Arsenico was chosen by God just like Monty was. And if Arsenico says it, it is true. Those who seek to challenge his wisdom, the wisdom of God at the end of the day, must be dealt with. And so he agrees to challenge Eli at Pact of Doom, but only after beating the absolute crap out of him. And, it's not just Monty who gets in on beating him up. I wish I had an option to make this formally in the game, but Ashton Nieves, who is also feuding with Eli, walks into the locker room, sees Eli getting beat up by Monty, no context as to why that happened, and just kicks Eli a few times while he's down. Monty kind of smiles and, kind of in agreement, like, you get what I'm doing here. And Ashton asks him, so what was that Arsenico was saying about a deal? Before the feed cuts out. It's a 5-star segment. It starts a total war feud between Eastern Elite and Independence. And the Fighting the Darkness feud is just pushing the Greatest Wrestler feud that's starting here further, which also starts tonight. Monty Hendrix is now a heel, and this is going to have some fascinating implications as we are seeing the people closest to Arsenico willing to resort to perhaps some shadier tactics in order to maintain order and shut down anyone questioning what they have to build. Now, unfortunately for Eli Chaos, he has a match coming up tonight. Because ultimately, Joey Smoking Gun Ace felt like he was shortchanged at Crown of Madness in that 2v2 between him and Gavin Smith, who famously never wins, versus Eli Chaos and Fuerza de Dragon. So he's like, look, Chase, I deserve a match against Eli Chaos. And I'm like, oh, don't talk to me. Talk to the Sorcerer Supreme. And he goes to Arsenico And he's like, look, give me the match I need. And Arsenico happily accepts, perhaps knowing that Eli Chaos was not going to be in fighting shape for this. Now, obviously, the feud between the Eastern Elite and Southern Sentries is over. The Eastern Elite won that feud handily. But while Eli, it would be totally understandable if he just stayed in the locker room, right? If he just forfeited the match, not coming out, he would have been it would have been understandable. But he does limp his way into the ring, and he tells the ref, like, look, I accept defeat here. Like, I am in no shape to fight. And the ref is ready to lift Joey's hand, and Joey pushes it away. Like, no, I don't accept that. I want a match. I demand a match. And the ref's like, but he just forfeited. I demand a match. And so the ref rang the bell. And look, Eli Chaos lasts longer than you would expect. It's not a squash. I swear it's not a squash. But at the end of the day, Joey easily takes him out. It's a 3 3/4 star match, which is a little bit unfortunate. I mean, submission matches, it was a negative effect. They're already sometimes hard to get huge popularity boosts on, rating boosts, I should say. But at the end of the day, like, I get it. Like, in universe, it wasn't that great of a match. Eli Chaos was beaten before it started, and this was ultimately a victory lap for Joey. But it's a nice victory lap for Joey, one that gets him a little bit of overness, a bit more popularity, and stops the 4-match losing streak. So see, Walter and Xander, I do give Joey some wins every now and then. I'm not heartless. I do see the value of Joey Smoking Gun Ace, and we'll see what he does with that win. But, for Eli, that's tough. 1 in 10 now, as what's meant to be the second in command for the Eastern Elite. The street champion of the Kiwis just can't catch a break. But we move on. And I think anyone who watched that last segment with Monty Hendricks saw this coming. Ashton Nieves may have been El Muerte Blanco's second in command, but the buzzsaw does not feel loyalty the way that La Bestia del Infierno once felt loyalty to El Muerte Blanco, right? La Bestia del Infierno creates the Hellfire Club because he is hurt by El Muerte Blanco's actions. And Ashton doesn't have that kind of emotional connection. He admits that he has lost faith in El Muerte Blanco as he beats him senseless here, laying him out badly with a steel chair and a stretcher coming down to take care of El Muerte Blanco, who at 33, these things hurt more than they do on the average young person. But, as far as Ashton's concerned, right, the Hellfire Club's right about you. You win when you create opportunities that prevent other people from winning. You have lost what it means to be the White Death. And I'm not going to protect you anymore. Not when I have a better offer. And look, El Muerte Blanco makes a movement to fight back, but perhaps those recent losses have hit him hard. He doesn't look like his former self, and it's no surprise that Ashton gets the upper hand. But as Ashton walks away and El Muerte Blanco is getting ready to go on the stretcher, he says, "No one escapes death forever." And I have a feeling he and Ashton Nieves will be fighting in the very near future. It does start a feud here. I'm kind of surprised that a dangerous attack like that, Injury Revenge, doesn't boost a feud like this. Maybe because it's in a segment. I'm not entirely sure. But it's a nice start to this feud between the two of them that'll be on pause until El Muerte Blanco is back. And who knows how long that's going to be. But, I mean, look, do I approve of Ashton's methods? No, of course not. Again, I am the face announcer. I cannot condone what Ashton Nieves has done here. But what I can say is that I hope that this is a wake-up call for El Muerte Blanco, right? We have seen him act very cowardly historically, has avoided any fight that he was not guaranteed to win until Derek Nash put him in a corner and took care of business. And if you can't deal with the Hellfire Club, then you're going to have to build yourself back up. And just having that high number next to your popularity does not fix the problems. So hopefully some self-reflection does. But at the end of the day, this is the end for the Northern Nightmare, right? I mean, El Muerte Blanco's been injured by one of his own men. And the 6 who remain agree that there's really nothing left to keep themselves together. Vance Porter and Hideo Dotto from No Bullshit immediately go up to Ashton Nieves and seem to like give him a pat on the back. Like, that's what you do, right? When someone talks that much trash and fails that badly to back it up, you do what needs to be done. No bullshit. And as Ashton says, like, look, if you're ready to strike it big with independence, I've got an in. And No Bullshit seem very excited about that opportunity. And it's the kind of thing that would start pushing independence at least to a neutral faction and maybe even a heel one. But for Connor Hansen, Rob DiBiase, and Devin Moxie, who just came back from his injury, their plans are less certain. They tell the crowd that they're going to sit back and evaluate their next moves. And we're going to see if anything can catch their attention that makes them say, yes, that is someone I'm willing to follow. And we close tonight with one heck of a match, a last man standing match between Lucas Meltzer and El Rey Loco, right? Oh, yeah, by the way, 3.5 stars. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It was never going to be good. That's the problem with the reputation system. I already talked about that earlier. It was as good as it could be, and it ends the faction, and that's fine. I accepted that when I walked in to this card. Cool. Lucas Meltzer versus El Rey Loco. Despite getting beaten up 1v2 at Crown of Madness, the unstable lunatic El Rey Loco is back at it again and is no less determined to retake what is rightfully his. And he gets up in Prince Pretty Pink's face and says, I deserve another shot to take you down. And Prince Pretty Pink refuses to fight him. He's like, there's no reason to rehash what happened last week, especially when you have no one left to fight on your behalf. You're alone, El Rey Loco. Take some time. Get your life together. Move on. Let this go. And El Rey Loco is ready to attack him then and there because it's not like he's going to wait for the ring if Prince Pretty Pink refuses to meet there. But Lucas steps up and agrees to a match. Prince Pretty Pink looks at him like, what are you doing? You should never give an opponent an opening while they're defeated. That's just bad politics. But Lucas looks at him and says, I don't care about the politics. I care about giving him a fair shot. That's what we were meant to do, right? That's why we're the faces that we are. We're meant to stand up for what's right. That's why you wanted to be faction leader, right? Because El Rey Loco was unpredictable. He was crazy, and we couldn't trust him to do the right thing. And you can't tell me that the right thing to do is shut him down and prevent him from a rematch that he has earned, because that last match wasn't fair, and you know it. And Prince Pretty Pink just throws his hands up in the air and says, okay, but I want you to know, if you lose tonight, you're the one who has to fix this mess. Lucas says, I'm not going to lose. Trust me. And he heads to the ring. And this last man standing match, El Rey Loco, right? I mean, I know it says 15% fatigue, but let's be real. He just lost 1v2. It was brutal. It was tough. And he is coming in, giving everything he has got into this match. And look, Lucas Meltzer's an incredible talent. He is more fatigued. He's had more matches recently. So he's also not necessarily at 100% of his strength. But Lucas is giving his all. There will be no easy path to victory for either of them. And I got to tell you, it's a very close match. But despite being ganged up on so recently, and as good as Lucas Meltzer is, El Rey Loco manages to outlast him. It's a 4.25-star match, which I will admit is not the number I wanted, especially with a last man standing increase. Excuse me? It was a hot match. They're both 4-star workers. God, this game sometimes. I know other people got low rolls. I can't complain. I get it. I just really thought that could be an opening there, but it's fine. It's fine. Because at the end of the day, what matters is that El Rey Loco gets a big popularity boost. He is now officially a main eventer. Lucas Meltzer also gets a popularity boost because the fans are here for a hero. Lucas Meltzer did the right thing and put on a great match, whatever that score says. And at the end of the day, as El Rey Loco celebrates in the ring and Lucas takes a long walk back to the locker room, we see Connor, Rob, and Devin watching from backstage, impressed by the grit and moxie that the Mad King has shown tonight. And that's where we end our card, and it's a 4.75-star. Let's go. Okay, I'm feeling better now. I think the 5.25 here helped. I think these were all 5-star segments, right? So even if the double wasn't ideal, there was a lot of good stuff in there. There are a lot of good segments. I will say it's kind of hard to tell sometimes like what the best segments are. I think the pure star count is something I'll have to take more into account when determining what segments to focus on, because in a competition like ours, I'm just not sure leveling up backstage interviews is ultimately worth it. But at the end of the day, I'm very happy with this card. Everything that needed to get done got done. The Northern Nightmare are no more. They can't hurt me anymore with their 1, technically 2 reputation by the end. And El Muerte Blanco needs some time away, and I hope he makes the most of it. And I look forward to what he will be able to do when he comes back. Well, everyone, it is time to close out the night with our champions from the last pay-per-view, the Campeonato de Luchasaur. He had an incredible 5.75-star card at the last pay-per-view. A lot of really fun matches, a lot of feud blow-offs, getting an additional bit of hype, bringing out the best of what their main event has to offer. So it will be great to see how he follows it up here at Destination tonight. And let's just jump right in. This is a tag street fight match between Dominion and Bittersweet. And look, Dominion are currently mid-feud with Phantom Troop, but now that Phantom Troop are the Guardianes del Pucara Femenino champions, Dominion feel the need to level themselves up with some practice, right? Take some time against some other tags in the division and earn those reps so that you are ready when you go up against Phantom Troop and have the chance to take that belt. Bittersweet also need to level up, right? I mean, sure, they've been champions twice. As recently as June at Deadly Gambit, they were champions. But they're trying to level themselves back up because they've spent a couple months focused largely on singles competition. Lulu Cherry has had a couple feuds that have kept her attention, and Bittersweet need somebody who will push them forward, right? Who will give them an opportunity to ultimately get back into the swing of things. That's how you get back into the title picture, is taking advantage of those moments and proving what you are capable of. Unfortunately for Bittersweet, Dominion does that a little bit better tonight. It's a 4.25-star match, a nice hot match, and a feud that went hot between Allison Cruzon and CC Cruz. And look, this is kind of an interesting tag, right? Because Ivy Chavez is obviously already quite hot, and CC Cruz is about 62%. So she's popular, but she's still got a long way to go before she gets over. So that kind of 79 overness is a little bit misguided at the end of the day. It's just that the average works out that way because one is very high, one is clearly working to get there. but it is a nice boost for her. The feud going hot between her and Allison Cruzan certainly helps that as well. And I think this could be a really nice feud for the Campeonato de Luchasaur moving forward. I love seeing that women's tag division get a little bit more fleshed out. And speaking of fleshing some things out, I mean, this is quite the segment here. The House of Hardcore have announced 3 new members to the faction. I mean, look, Poker of Pain, Amatrayadora Anderson, these are some competitors that really speak for themselves, right? Jack Asriel, Kenneth King, they've had some good success as individuals, but they are also one of the premier tag teams in that division. And Amatrayadora Anderson, I mean, he was a title holder not very long ago. The Campeonato Andino title he held for several months. And House of Hardcore basically say, look, you know that you're good. We know that you're good. We want to lend our talents towards making you as strong as you can be. And simultaneously, look, if we're all together, right, we're going to be stronger than if we're wrestling apart. Won't it be great for you to have us, Gambler and Cameron Johnson, in your corner when it is needed most? And ultimately, I think it's safe to say that that's true. That is a plus 196 to the reputation of the House of Hardcore. So yeah, sure, it's only a 4-star segment at maximum effectiveness because Vince Bailey didn't do a great job here. And somewhere Eduardo was saying, see, I told you segments can't go above 4 stars, but it's such a boost to the House of Hardcore. And we know how much reputation affects the strength of a segment. So now that the House of Hardcore are Reputation 7, guess what they're going to be capable of moving forward anytime they're in a segment together. Not to mention just, I mean, again, you've got Poker of Pain, you've got Amatrayadora, a huge boost to everyone involved, and I am sure that is going to matter in the long run for the Campeonato de Luchasaur. Now, we, of course, move on to Poker of Pain, who just joined the House of Hardcore, going up against the Corazones de Lucha and Omerta. And this is one of those wonderful triangle feuds here. Everyone here has a feud with everyone else. For Poker of Pain and Corazones de Lucha, this refers back to a feud that last ended in March. It was a 2-2 draw at the time, but the Corazones de Lucha technically got the victory and certainly got the last laugh with a cage match win on a weekly show. But that 2-2, certainly Poker of Pain had some great performances along the way, cannot be counted out. Meanwhile, the Corazones de Lucha and Poker of Pain have each separately been feuding with Omerta, right? Corazones and Omerta haven't had a head-to-head match, but their individual members have faced off in a battle royale at Burn It Down. And meanwhile, Omerta versus Poker of Pain is currently battled to a 1-1 draw, but it's a feud that has gone hot, with Poker of Pain getting the most recent victory in a street fight. So we've got 3 incredibly talented tags, all of which have their reasons to dislike each other, have their reasons to give their all in this match, none of whom have a lot of experience over the other in a tables match specifically. But while Corazones de Lucha and Omerta are both very talented, from a narrative perspective, you kind of had to know that Poker of Pain were going to get a level up from joining the House of Hardcore. It's a 5-star match. Look at their popularity compared to where they were. They're going to 940 from 895 just from the segment and that win here tonight. It's a 5-star match. It's a nice restarted feud here between Corazones and Poker of Pain. And oh, by the way, it's a holy shit moment as Jack Asriel was about to hit Hart Jones with his finisher before they both collapsed from exhaustion. A very nice start to Poker of Pain's House of Hardcore era. And Corazones de Lucha and Omerta, it's a loss, but it's one that they can withstand. The fans are still going to be behind them. And we should expect big things from both of these tag teams moving forward. We now move on to a recap package, which highlighted the match between Chakal Pro and Kyle Cage. And again, really not beating the allegations about packages not being able to go above 4 stars for the Campeonato de Luchasaur game. You're really not helping me out. But look, it was an incredible match, right? Kyle Cage grabbing the golden teddy bear and defeating Chakal Pro to become the Nova champion once again, right? He had it. He fought Chakal multiple times. Chakal took it from him back, held it for a couple months, and now Kyle Cage has the belt again. And sure, the game has been unnecessarily punishing to Eduardo for that fact. It famously does not like when a belt has been around for less than 2 months on less than 3 months on a champion before it gets moved again. At the end of the day, who cares? It was a 6.25 star match at Burn It Down, a very strong performance from both competitors, and Chakal Pro has already demanded a rematch later tonight. But a little birdie told me that he's not going to be alone in that rematch, as a man from Kyle Cage's past, a former feud resurrected, will be there as well. But before we can get to that, we have a match between Daiwick Damerla and Brady Velasquez. And you know it's going to be a banger of a feud when you have the School of the Phoenix from Archangel de Fuego and the School of the Crab from Daiwick Damerla going head to head like they are here tonight, right? These are two factions, really schools of thought, schools of fighting that have had some great matches back and forth. And Daiwick, you know, he's one of those tragic figures that I can't help but love, right? Especially as a face, right? Yes, that record says 3-12, and I understand why you might think badly about that. But outside of battle royales and multi-man matches in which a loss is, you know, much more likely than a win, right? He had a hot feud against Jordan Amir in March, and he had another hot feud that just blew off in an ambulance match versus Cameron Johnson at Burn It All Down, which was also a 6.25 star match. Yes, Daiwick lost the last match of both of those feuds, but from a match score, it was always tied heading into the blow-off match. He lost 2-1 against Jordan Amir, and he lost 3-2 against Cameron Johnson. It is always close. When he gets his head-to-head, one-on-one moments, he battles it out, and he gives his best, and he's so, so close to finally getting the edge over somebody he's fighting against. But look, he's not the only one who lost an ambulance match at Burn It All Down. Brady Velasquez maybe not quite as hyped as far as the overall score goes, but he was up against Ty Flaw and lost that ambulance match in a feud that ultimately ended in a draw. Yeah, Ty Flaw technically gets the win because he won the last match, but it was very much a 2-2 affair, both of them having their moments of time. And unlike Daiwick, Brady has at least proven that he can win a feud, right? He beat James Parker in a feud back in April, though it was hardly a convincing win. It ended up being, I think, a 1-0 in head-to-head matches, while the feud mostly progressed in these multi-mans where neither stood out. But that's how you get a 3-11 competitor versus a 3-12 competitor. Well, both of them are very much in the main event picture, very much in the title picture, if they can get a win. They need to get a current feud win if they're going to be given the opportunities that the Campeonato de Luchasaur has to offer. And first blood is going to Daiwick Damerla. He gets the win tonight. It's a 5.25 star match. That's what we're talking about. Interesting story. Cannot agree more. I love seeing these two schools go head to head, but it's two wrestlers that have not fought against each other before. Plenty of reasons to be hype. Sure, Brady takes a little bit of a morale and overness hit, but it's nothing he can't handle. That's a very minor popularity loss in the broad scheme of things, but a big boost for Daiwick Damerla, getting him above that 900 mark. The interesting story, I think, is a big one here. The feud hype is going to be great. 73 is a starting point when that goes hot, and I'm almost sure it will. That's going to be fun to build off of. And you'll love seeing that positive street fight effect. Look, I understand this is a competition, but at the end of the day, I like good storytelling. I like good matches. And I have to give a tip of the cap to Eduardo. I think this was a really smart match to put together, and it paid off for him in a big way. Speaking of smart things, something that he's been doing that I plan to steal quite a bit in the future. Again, really not beating the 4-star allegations on this one game. It's a video package. And it's for Eclipse, right? And Eclipse certainly has a lot to be celebrating right now. Conrad Supernova successfully defending his Toki Championship title, ending his feud against El Cuervo at Burn It All Down. Violetta winning a ladder match versus Hei Lee to become the greatest by winning the greatest championship. The first person to unseat Hei Lee and become a holder of that title. And Kyle Cage redeemed his Nova Championship with that win over Chakal Pro that we talked about earlier. Given that Eclipse also has former title holders in Eagle and Adriano Cicelli and top contenders with people like Ty Flaw and the king of Battle Royales, Liam Draco, this is the face of the Campeonato de Luchasaur as far as factions go. They've done an incredible job, and there's a lot to be proud of here. And a lot of these belts, the road to success runs through Eclipse. And they're definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with moving forward. But as we move forward, we go to a headhunting feud. And I love the story here, right? Caden Lee, formerly of the Rising Sun, loses a headhunting feud against Jason Styles, the leader of it's not the House of Hardcore. It's the Carnival of Carnage, excuse me. He is now forced to be part of the Carnival of Carnage. And since that, he's like, look, Carnival, Jason Styles is like, you have to go earn your share, right? Earn your space in this faction. Go bring in Jason Cortez. And again, this is a School of the Crab versus School of the Phoenix. Like, you should understand the fighting style that Jason Cortez is bringing. You should have no problem taking him down for us, right? But right now, Jason Cortez is 2-0 in this feud, and it's starting to make Jason Styles and Psycho Circus question his loyalty to the faction. And sure, you can point out that why should he be loyal to a faction he was forced to be in? But that's the job that's been assigned to him. And Rising Sun have moved on, right? They've appointed Kenji Ryota as the new leader. And I think that's why Caden Lee comes to the ring with a little bit more energy, a little bit more drive, a little bit more focus, right? He knows that he does not have a place to go back to in the Rising Sun. Losing this feud only puts him in La Sagrada Familia. And look, Jason Cortez is a force to be reckoned with in La Sagrada Familia, right? Sure, he's 1-7 if you don't include those wins against Caden Lee, but those are big wins, and he's a 4-4 heel, 949 popularity, very much has the potential to make that road to the face of the company status if he is given an opportunity to do so. So it is no easy task for Caden Lee, the self-proclaimed best thing to happen to pro wrestling, to take down the Punisher here. Especially when La Sagrada Familia could use a win after multiple titles were dropped by that faction. But at the end of the day, Caden Lee's grit comes together here. He secures the win, and it's another 5.25 star match. You love to see it. Great form. Get some blood in there. It pushes the headhunting feud hot. So we have even more room here for hot matches and segments moving forward. It's a holy shit moment as Caden Lee hits Jason Cortez with a lariat that knocked his head clean off. The fans are going crazy. And look, this is exactly what Caden Lee needed, right? He has pride that he needs to fight for. Sure, he was on a 7-match loss streak. And sure, this might not be where he wanted to be. But I think this street fight brought out something in him. And who knows? Maybe he's not a face forever. Maybe at some point the sheer nature of the Carnival of Carnage wears him down. But for now, he stands strong. He gets a win. And for today, if only today, he shows Jason Cortez that he is no pushover. And that he is not going to be forced into another new faction without a fight. We move on now to the main event package highlighting the match between Conrad Supernova, Jordan Amir, and Liam Draco. And look, Conrad Supernova ended his feud against El Cuervo. He's been looking for a new worthy challenger, someone who deserves the shot at a belt that he has pushed into the stratosphere, right? Sure, he's not the only person to hold it. El Cuervo had it for a couple months, but otherwise, it's been Conrad Supernova's belt. And when you look at where his popularity is, where Eclipse is as a faction, and where the belt's popularity has grown over the last few months, it is undeniable that Conrad Supernova has shaped this belt and, in many ways, shaped the company in his image. He may not have the main belt right now, but he has turned the Toki belt into something to be damn proud of. And it's no surprise that it drew the attention of someone like Jordan Amir, right? Jordan has just recently started his journey to become face of the company and is thus a worthy challenger. He deserves an opportunity on this shot. But Liam Draco is not finished with him yet. Liam Draco is hungry to prove that he's not just a Battle Royale champion. He is someone who can win, get in the trenches against someone like Jordan Amir, and emerge victorious. And so Conrad Supernova says, okay, I'll take you both on. See you in a ladder match to headline Destination tonight. It's a 3.5-star segment. I mean, a little bit of a low roll to be sure, but, you know, all of these packages, if you run enough of them, you're going to have some low rolls along the way. I don't think it's something to necessarily worry about if you're Eduardo, especially with so many great matches that we've seen so far on this card. But we move on to that Nova Championship match that was teased earlier when we did the recap package. Kyle Cage, he was ready to defend his Nova Championship tonight against Chakal Pro, which has been a back-and-forth feud with the title changing hands between the two of them a little bit quicker than the game would like, but ultimately in a way that's had hype matches every single step of the way. But El Cuervo has decided he is not done with Kyle Cage. He may have lost his chance at the Toki Championship. His feud with Conrad Supernova may have come to a close. But Conrad Supernova was not the first person that El Cuervo fought against. El Cuervo went 3-1 in a feud against Kyle Cage that ended back in April, including a final victory in a teddy bear on a pole match before the Nova Championship existed at all, right? These teddy bear on a pole matches were the foreshadowing for the era of the Nova Championship that we have seen ever since. And that feud ended prematurely due to an injury, but it was one-sided at the end of the day. Kyle Cage had not become the man that he is today, the UK's best, fully on his way to becoming a face of the company. That was not the Kyle Cage that El Cuervo beat, but it's a Kyle Cage that El Cuervo is confident he can beat. And, you know, that doesn't mean Chakal Pro's going to fall back, right? He's not going to just give El Cuervo a chance to take the title for himself. He needs to defend La Sagrada Familia's honor. He needs to take his title back and prove that he is the best person to hold it. That is what matters here. All of them want this win quite badly. But it's Kyle Cage who's going to get it. And oh no. Oh no. Kyle Cage suffered a severe injury at a 0.8% chance. That is heartbreaking. I honestly just, as someone who has had this happen to me multiple times, it always hurts. Because Kyle Cage was such a great competitor. He was well on his way to being a face of the company. And he was a great belt holder. There were a lot of cool stories that Eduardo was working with. And I am genuinely, like, character aside, I am bummed for Eduardo here. This sucks. And I'm going to hit that vacate button because with a severe injury, there's no way Kyle Cage is going to be back anytime soon. And it would suck for there to be no Nova champion until he came back. But man, oh man, that's tough. That's a tough injury to bounce back from. And look, I can say things like it was a 5-star match. Kyle Cage did a great job. No one took a popularity hit that was too meaningful. Certainly no morale or overness hits. Pushed some feuds going, blah, blah, blah. It's not that none of that stuff matters. It's not like the Kyle Cage and El Cuervo feud that would have kicked off here doesn't matter. And certainly the injury revenge is going to boost that a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe Eduardo tries to make the most of it by having El Cuervo do an injury celebration next week. There's a segment that allows you to do that. But, man, that's tough. It's a holy shit moment. It's reversing the finisher, cursing at him, hitting his own. It gets the Nova Championship to just 4 points away. One more win will certainly get the Nova Championship back to the silver prestige where it belongs. But yeah, I mean, all those details don't matter compared to Kyle Cage's injury here. And I just hope that as far as severe injuries go, it goes as cleanly as it can, and that Eduardo was rewarded with a Wolverine upgrade so that he can bring him back as soon as possible. We do have to move forward. The show does go on even with an injury like this. And it goes on to that triple threat ladder match we talked about earlier. Conrad Supernova, the Toki Championship, has earned the right to be considered the top male performer in the company. And you could say, Chase, he's 8-3. In every other promotion, there are people with higher records than 8-3. But this is the Campeonato de Luchasaur. This is a league with a lot of coin flips. And at the end of the day, only El Cuervo at 6-4, now 6-5, has a winning record. Conrad stands alone in that regard. Everyone else is 500 or lower. Which makes sense. A lot of multi-matches are common. You're going to take more losses than wins in that regard. But Conrad has stood out. And look, Jordan Amir would love to focus on nothing more than taking Conrad Supernova down, right? The Phantom Execution is just 2 wins under 500. Certainly someone with a lot of wins under his belt from a raw rate perspective. But he's only just started fighting Liam Draco. And Liam Draco, the Battle Royale King, successfully argued to Eduardo that he is just as deserving of a spot in this title match. And look, the Toki Championship, I don't care what prestige the game says it is. It is a top-tier belt as long as Conrad holds it. And that's not going to change tonight. It is a 4.5-star match. Not a bad match by any means. I guess, the Jordan Amir Conrad Supernova feud just starting here. It was a ladder match increase too. This is another one of those, I feel like, definitely a low roll given we had 3 4-star workers with a ladder match increase. It is a holy shit moment. That's the 4th of the night for Eduardo. Certainly the Campeonato de Luchasaur will be able to take advantage of these creativity points. Conrad Supernova suplexing Jordan Amir off the top ladder, crushing onto the mat below. Very well done there. The Toki Championship just 25 points away from becoming a gold belt, something that Conrad Supernova will have no problem doing. We will see the score now. There it is. It's a 4.75 star card, as it should be. That's exactly what this card deserves. A lot of really great matches, a lot of really solid segments, right? They weren't blowing anyone away, but the matches blew people away. 4.75 seems only fair to me. It ties him with me for the week, and we will see now in the recap how this is going to work. The Campeonato de Luchasaur does gain some fans tonight. I just gain a little bit more because my hype is a little bit more min-maxed. But for what it's worth, Walter, you lost fewer fans than Xander did. So you clearly, I don't know if you just maybe won the tiebreaker in terms of match rating, or your hype was in a better spot tonight for whatever reason, or maybe just, Xander has more fans to lose. Any of those things are possible, but you are not last in terms of how the game ranked the night, and it will be, for the first time ever, Xander starting a weekly card. Maybe it's not the first time ever. I think weeklies he's maybe taken some hits in the past. But here you go, Eduardo. Campeonato de Luchasaurus back at Reputation 7, where it belongs. And look, I want to be hype. I want to just keep talking about all these awesome things because Campeonato de Luchasaurus did such a great job. I feel for Kyle Cage, and I feel for Eduardo that he's going to have to make something out of this. But I believe in his storytelling. I believe in the game that he's played, and I believe this has been one heck of a weekly, for better and for worse. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, all those fun things. Be sure to follow us, twitch.tv/redshirtking, so that you can see the weeklies, or see the pay-per-views, when those go live. We always do the pay-per-views live every other Thursday. But of course, there will be 2 weeklies in between now and then, so stay tuned to this YouTube channel for that. You can find me at chasewassenaar.bsky.social. I'm trying to spend less time on Twitter, but I'm at chasewassenaar there as well. And hey, if you think that listening to me talk for a couple hours is fun, you should hear me talk for 1 hour with a friend named Walter in the Rough Drafts podcast. It's a great time if you like movies or video games, or both, presumably. Rough Drafts podcast on all of your favorite podcast listening places, and you can follow the podcast at Rough Drafts Pod on Twitter and roughdraftspodcast.bsky.social. I'm going to try to be better about using our social media stuff. I just don't like it in principle, but I do like people knowing that the show exists, so I'm going to try to get over that. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back with the next weekly soon. Until then, goodbye, Internet.